The lights could go out as early as 2015, according to the most dire predictions, and while it may not be quite as dramatic as this, the increasing risks to our energy supply are widely recognised. Could fracking be the answer? The controversial process of extracting shale gas from underground has revolutionised the US power industry. Could it do the same for the UK?
We're going to need it. The reality is that legislation from Europe is going to see some of our coal-fired power stations closing in the next few years. We've got a number of nuclear power stations that are going to close in the next decade, and without something else to supply that demand and that gap that will be created, the lights could very well go out.
I'm on the edge of Blackpool and on the edge of a massive shale gas field that stretches from here in Lancashire as far as the eye can see and beyond into Yorkshire. And there's twice as much shale gas underground as was previously thought. But the key question is, how easy is it to get at? Fracking involves drilling deep into the earth up to 20,000 feet. Water and chemicals are then pumped at high pressure to create narrow fractures in the rock. This allows gas to flow into a well for capture. Environmental campaigners gathering in a Lancashire tea room say the offer of a £100,000 payout for communities affected by fracking is no sweetener.
When one wellhead fails, you get the pollution of all those chemicals, and if it's during the blowback, you get all that slurry. That will leak into our groundwater, it will reach our aquifer.
Health, for me, is not for sale. My twin boys' health is not for sale with £100,000 bribes from the government.
Fracking caused minor earthquakes in Blackpool. It's creating a rush of optimism among Britain's energy suppliers. And in the Treasury, the prospect of a surge in tax revenues has created a tremor of excitement. Much depends on whether Britain's environmental concerns can be softened by the possibility of cheaper domestic fuel bills. Mike McCarthy, Sky News.
This survey is correct, and I'm not saying that it is, but if it is, what does it mean for long-term gas supply and prices in the UK?
Let's separate the two parts out between supply and prices. I think in the first instance for supply, this could be a very material impact for the UK. So this is a very significant amount of gas. Just a fraction of that being recovered could reduce our import dependency significantly, which increases our security of supply, much in the same way as if we're going to have a decarbonisation of the economy and renewables, we're going to need gas-fired generation, and shale gas delivered domestically can help that position. As far as price is concerned, that's going to be determined ultimately by the speed at which things roll out. Frankly, I don't think we're going to have the same sort of revolution we've had in the States in terms of pricing, but probably more of a cap on pricing and actually giving people the security to invest and the confidence that prices won't go up rather than...
Because the government was bigging this up today, and we know politicians are in the business of spin, but I've been reading tonight an analyst note from Jefferies, the stockbroker, and it says hundreds of wells and years of production data are needed to estimate with any real reliability the gas in place. Is that right?
Well, I think for gas in place, that's something we know, but the amount of it we can get out economically, safely, and also with the social licence to operate, with the confidence in the communities in which we operate, that has yet to be explored.
Right. But what about that? Because you brought up the subject. It seems that it's good news for iGas. Your shares were up today, nearly 3%. But what about the local communities who are living near fracking sites? They're very concerned.
I think it's very important that we give them the confidence and the information about what we're carrying out and our activities that we're carrying out.
Do you understand their concerns?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Would you move your family near to a fracking site?
I don't live very far away from some of our existing oil fields right now. So, yes, I have confidence in where we stand on that front. But the UK has a long history of actually oil and gas extraction and doing it safely. The Environment Agency, the Health and Safety Executive, the Department of Energy and Climate Change have a long history of regulating oil and gas production onshore in the UK and offshore with gold standards that are admired elsewhere in the world. And actually this is just a further rollout of that. And actually today announcements have come through from DEC and from the EA talking about how they will regulate this process and working with the industry to get the right guidelines to give people the confidence they need.
Friends of the Earth says fracking is, quote, dirty and unnecessary, and clearly there is evidence that it does cause minor earthquakes.
There was also a report from the Energy Institute in Durham which said that the earthquakes were roughly equivalent to someone jumping off a stepladder. So a bus going past the Gherkin outside here, or one of the other activities next door piling for an office building would create significantly more seismicity, induced seismicity, than we're talking about in the case of shale gas fracking.
Okay, if it does get the go-ahead, where do we go from here?
I think the country deserves to know whether or not this can make a difference to energy policy in this country. So I think we need to go through a very carefully regulated process of working out, can we make gas flow at economic rates? And I think the government is actually being quite joined up in working with the various entities to make sure that happens.
How do we find out the answer to your question?
We need to drill and we need to flow test those wells.
And that's your business.
And that's our business.
Which is the risk business. Because of course,
is the risk business, yeah.
You could drill wells and
they might not flow.
Many gas and oil companies have discovered there's nout at the bottom, or it simply doesn't flow.
Well, I think in the case of shale gas, as in most what's called unconventional reservoirs, it's not a question about whether it is or isn't there. It's about, can you make it flow at the right rates? And that's what determines the economics. So what the British Geological Survey has said today is, yes, there is a significant amount of gas here. If we can make this flow at the right rates, it could make a big difference for Britain.